Villgro Philippines is smashing the gender finance gap as a Philippine social enterprise incubator aiming to create lasting change that will offer future generations a level playing field. Katherine Khoo is the head of venture support and partnerships at Villgro Philippines. So, hello Kat, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you to talk about Villgro Philippines and how you are smashing the gender finance gap by providing investment readiness for women entrepreneurs. As Villgro Philippines nga is advocating from that session you organized during the Philippine Startup Week 2021. So, hello Kat.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for inviting us and for having me on the podcast.
Of course, we're very honored actually to have Villgro Philippines dito sa podcast. So let's start with that. So ano nga ba ang Villgro Philippines?
Great. Yeah, so Villgro Philippines is an early stage impact enterprise incubator and investor. We actually have roots in India, no? So Villgro started in India about 21 years ago. So we're actually one of the oldest and largest social enterprise incubators in the world. So Villgro was very pioneering in its time because, they really took a bet on early stage enterprises that were trying to address social and environmental issues, and at the same time investing in them. So this was before the term impact investing was even coined, no? It was something that Villgro was already doing. And so our CEO, Priyatachadi, used to work at Villgro in India as head of incubating support and saw that there was really the potential to bring that methodology and sort of that framework to a budding ecosystem like the Philippines. So we came to the Philippines in 2017 as Villgro Philippines, and we've been doing our work here across the region, but about 70% is focused on the Philippines. So the way that I would kind of categorize our work is in three main pillars. So that's inspiration, incubation, and investment. So a lot of what we do around what we call the inspiration pillar really has to do with thought leadership. So similar to, kind of what you're doing, no, Johnny? It's really kind of evangelizing, right? Spreading the word. What is social entrepreneurship? What is impact investing? And how can you get into the space, right? So even if you're just interested, you want to learn more, we have a lot of events. We used to do them in person pre-pandemic. We've been doing some virtual events over the last 2 years. And then we also have hackathons or innovation challenges because there are also spaces where we don't see a lot of innovators, right? But we want a lot of innovators to come out and really kind of solve these pressing challenges. I would say the core of our work is really incubation, so the second pillar, and that's really providing tailored support to enterprises. So we currently have a portfolio of 39 enterprises that we manage, all in different capacities. No? And we first started out sector agnostic, so we just wanted to kind of figure out like who's out there, but over the last 2 years, we really started to focus on 5 key sectors. So those are agriculture and fisheries, women and girls, climate action, maternal health, and education and employment. So those are sort of our focus areas for now. And then the last bit, the third pillar is investment. So we really believe, right, that in order for enterprises to grow, there's also a need for capital infusion. And so we do that primarily through an impact angel network that we ourselves operate called Impact Pioneers Network. And we also do some direct investments as well. So that was a pretty long mouthful though, but in a nutshell, that's sort of the work that we do.
Yeah, but that's very informative. And actually, I like what you call yourself, social enterprise incubator. And as you said, Villgro was actually one of the very first to do this sa buong mundo. Yeah, and now you also said that you have discovered like some key pillars or key aspects that you're now focusing into. And I think it's also connected dun nga sa inyong event na inorganize ng Philippine Startup Week 2021. I think right now you're also focusing, or Villgro Philippines is also focusing on women like this sector. So first of all, I want to know, what do we mean by gender finance gap? I mean, this is like the theme of this event and like the overall aspect nitong sector na ito. So what is gender finance gap?
Great. Yeah, thanks for the question, Johnny. So I also just wanted to kind of preface that as Villgro, we've sort of made a commitment to adopt a gender lens in all of our operations. About 2 years ago, we started to really commit ourselves to gender. And this is a perfect segue to kind of that topic of the gender finance gap, right? So a lot of people might not be familiar with sort of the terminology of gender finance gap, but people might be familiar more with the concept of, kind of inequality, right? And a lot of biases towards women. And that's not isolated. That's also applicable when it comes to entrepreneurship. So in the Philippines, for example, majority of the SMEs are actually women owned. But if you look at the data, a lot of these women who need access to capital are unable to do so compared to their male counterparts. And it's not an isolated phenomenon in the Philippines. It's actually something that's present globally, right? And so there's a much deeper conversation that's probably need to be had, no, around kind of the role of biases at work. But in the Philippines, for example, right, a lot of women entrepreneurs will be shut out from opportunities to access capital, primarily because of their gender, but also because of other factors, right? So a lot of this has to do with, sort of the upbringing that you have, right? If you went to the right school, people who will kind of open up the connections to you. It's also, kind of implicit in the work that the finance industry does, right? Because there's also a lot of gender biases there. So we don't see a lot of women decision makers in financial institutions. So for example, when a woman entrepreneur pitches their product in front of, kind of capital providers, a lot of the times it would be a male person, right, that you're talking to, who might not necessarily understand the challenge that the women entrepreneur is facing if their product or service is actually catered towards women, right? So automatically, if they don't understand the problem, they won't see the potential for the solution or for the enterprise. So it's a lot of layers, and that's something that we're trying actively to address through our work at Villgro Philippines.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a conversation I'd really like to have in the future. No, maybe we can go deeper in another episode, like Villgro Philippines, of course, and yung like this gender biases nga, like this inequality. I'd also want to know more. I mean, the roots, the causes, and the hidden. Parang, I mean, it's not that mainstream pa. I think, I'm not sure. I mean, that kind of literacy, that kind of knowledge. Yeah, so I think that's what you're advocating, no? And so can we know more nga about the event na inorganize ninyo nitong Philippine Startup Week 2021? So it's called Smashing the Gender Finance Gap, Investment Readiness for Women entrepreneurs. Sorry about that. So yeah, so I mean, what happened during the session? So can we know what happened?
Sure. Yeah, I think it is timely for us to revisit this now because it is Women's Month right now. And, during Philippine Startup Week, which happened in November of last year, we really also wanted to bring to the fore the topic of the gender finance gap and sort of opportunities for Filipino women entrepreneurs to access, how they can kind of proactively, if they are looking for investment, how can they equip themselves better, right? And what are some of the opportunities that are available for them? So we put together a panel discussion, and we wanted to showcase different perspectives, right, in talking about the topic. So we invited 2 investors, both of whom apply a gender lens in their investment process. And then we also invited an entrepreneur. So this is Nelben Moreno. She is the founder and CEO of Green Habits, which is an agro enterprise based in Tagum City in Davao. And then we also invited into the panel our CEO, Priatachili, to kind of talk about the role of intermediaries, right, or entrepreneur support organizations, and how a lot of these support mechanisms are actually available to women entrepreneurs. So we kind of put together this panel and really discussed, kind of the key questions, right? Number one is, discussing exactly what you asked, right? Like, what is the gender finance gap? But then also talking about their own experiences, right? As investors, right? What does it mean to be investment ready? What are some of the, the tips and tricks that Filipino women entrepreneurs can take if they are ready to access capital? What are the things they should prepare for from an investor perspective? And then from an entrepreneur perspective as well, right? From Nelben's own kind of experience of raising capital for her enterprise, what was that like? And then we've also kind of delved a little bit deeper into in terms of the entire ecosystem, right? The entire marketplace of accessing capital for women entrepreneurs, what needs to change? Because obviously the gap is still there. So what are the things that we can do to actually move the needle forward and making a more gender inclusive marketplace for women entrepreneurs?
Yeah, this is such a very critical issue, no, in the Philippines and actually in the whole world. So, like in the eyes of the entrepreneur and in the eyes of the investors, I really like that term, the gender lens. I really think we need to be more objective on that part kasi I mean that's how we can reduce the biases and that's how we can level the playing field nga. Yeah, so maybe can we know more nga maybe like takeaways from this session, or like maybe moving forward, what do you think should we do as a society regarding this issue? Yeah.
Yeah, great. I think, the first thing is really to, have that mentality of actually unlearning a lot of the inherent biases that you have, right? And it's a very long process. It's not something that can happen overnight. And so, if you are interested as an entrepreneur, as an investor, or as an entrepreneur support organization, we can also kind of help you along the way, right? So Villgro Philippines is committed to becoming a gender smart incubator. And so we've actually been doing a series of trainings, for example, with other Philippine incubators on how to adopt the gender lens in their operations. So I think the first thing is to equip yourself with knowledge, right? What I think, whenever you kind of speak to woman entrepreneur and, you start to kind of ask a lot of these questions, you start to be extra hard on them, right? Take a step back and see, are you applying a lot of these biases, right? And it's not something that you can, kind of confront very easily. I think it's a series of unlearning that you have to do, but I think it is necessary in applying a gender lens. I think the second one is, finding people who can rally around you, right? If you're starting to kind of go into this whole gender lens process, who are the other players in the ecosystem who can help you? In the Philippines, there's actually quite a number, right, of gender lens investors who are committed to adopting this gender lens and applying a gender analysis in the investment process. And on our end, we as Villgro Philippines, we actually also put together a community for women entrepreneurs. So this is called the We Rise community, and it's something that was really born out of a need from talking to women entrepreneurs. So just to share, we actually used to run an accelerator program specifically for women entrepreneurs, and the goal was around investment readiness and to connect them to capital providers. And from running that program, we saw that a lot of women entrepreneurs have similar challenges, and one of the things that they really wanted to do was to talk to other women entrepreneurs who were going through the same thing, right? It might not necessarily solve the problem, right? But you can share your experiences, you can share your connections, right? Which are, kind of traditionally shut out from women, right? Because again, a lot of these other factors, right? Like, if you're in a gentleman's club, right, with like all of these connections, that's not necessarily as accessible to our women entrepreneurs who also have to juggle home responsibilities. So we put together the We Rise community to really have this, kind of platform to connect. And one of the things we saw was also a need to, kind of address mental health challenges of women entrepreneurs. So every week we have an event that we call We Breathe, where we bring together women entrepreneurs really just to meditate, right, to reflect. And it's a very short session we do every week, but it's been very, very helpful, right? Because it's a safe space that we hold for our women entrepreneurs, and it's been very, very valuable to them. Another thing is, women entrepreneurs compared to their male counterparts really have, kind of a lack of self-confidence, right? And this is kind of across the board. Women will always self-select out of opportunities if they see it. So if they see, for example, an opportunity that requires, let's say, 5 years of experience, and a woman entrepreneur has only 4 years of experience, they'll say, oh, it's not for me. I won't be qualified for that. Whereas, a male entrepreneur would sometimes say, I have 4 years, it might be enough. So they'll just apply, right? So there's that confidence gap that we also want to address. And this is also very prevalent when women entrepreneurs talk to investors, right? They don't feel very confident speaking to investors, especially if it's their first time raising capital. So what we also did through the We Rise community is we put together a session called Pitch Perfect. And it's really just a pitch practice session. There's no commitment that an investor will, take a very critical eye at your pitch deck and say it's not for us. It's really a feedback mechanism, right? From an investor who does this for a living, no. So there's no expectation that a deal will be closed. But in that process of receiving feedback from investors, they're actually able to take that and then tweak it, right? And we've had some very positive unintentional outcomes, right? Now, from a pitch practice session lang, somebody actually invested, right? So there are also these very positive outcomes from it. So I think from our investors who came to that event, a lot of them also shared the need for storytelling, right? What is the sort of story of scale of your enterprise, right? And how does that come through, and how does that kind of convince an investor that this is something worth betting on? And then another part is in terms of investment readiness, there's a lot that entrepreneurs can still upskill on. I think with Filipino entrepreneurs, there's a lack in general of their own kind of mastery of their finances or books, right? And so that's something that they can actively work on as well. And there might be kind of technical assistance facilities that they can access. So just being open to accessing all of these opportunities as well.
Yeah, I actually had a lot of goosebumps because this conversation, I mean, it's such a powerful message, what you shared, Kat. And actually, it's pretty life-changing for me because I myself, I mean, it's true that I have to unlearn some of those like biases, and I think not just me, I think many people in the society in the Philippines, parang. Yeah, I mean, I hope I give this issue like the space or the attention it deserves. I think it really needs to be out there to be more known to other people. And thank you for sharing yung mga activities na ginagawa ni Villgro towards that issue, that problem, towards solving that problem, and I mean towards into the future. So speaking of that, about the future, so si Villgro Philippines, so ano pa ba yung mga iba niyong projects, or maybe you have some announcements that you want to share now? So yeah, you can take this time to share about the future plans or announcements for Villgro Philippines.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. So there's one specific to women entrepreneurs that's actually ongoing. It's called the She Disrupts program. So it's a pre-acceleration program with a lot of mentoring opportunities that we're running in partnership with Creatella Impact as part of our We Rise community. So we're looking for 30 women-led enterprises across the Philippines to be part of this program. And then at the very end, 2 enterprises will win $5,000 in equity-free funding, as well as access to our international mentors. So that's one. And you can check out the Villgro Philippines page for more details on the She Disrupts program. The other one is specifically for impact enterprises. So I think I mentioned this very briefly earlier. As part of our investment pillar, we actually operate an impact angel network. So one of the key challenges that we see in this ecosystem is that a lot of early stage enterprises, after running, through all of the pitch competitions, right, the other programs, after accessing a lot of the grant funding, there's not a lot of people that they can turn to for capital, because a lot of the other funds only invest at a certain amount, right? Let's say $1 million and up. And so anything below that, there's really a lack of capital that's going around for those ticket sizes. So the Impact Pioneers Network, which is a network that we ourselves operate with our partners at Exchange, is open. If you are an impact enterprise raising funding, please feel free to reach out to us. You can visit invest.impactpioneers.ph and sign up. We have a virtual platform there where you can create a profile and connect with investors. And so that's, I think, the main announcement and the main kind of thing that we want to share as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Kat. No, so this is a very informative conversation. So yeah, if our listeners want to know more pa about Villgro Philippines, so what's the website they can go to, or maybe social media? So yeah, where can they find more information lang?
Yeah, so I think you can visit our website, which is villgrophilippines.org. I think we're on all of the social media platforms. So we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We also have a blog that's up on Medium where you can read more about sort of the thoughts that we have around the challenges in the ecosystem. And then separately, we have separate social media channels for our We Rise community as well. So if you just search We Rise community, we are also on multiple platforms. So that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And then there is a virtual community that's hosted on another website. And the link to that you can access through our Facebook page. And then lastly is our Impact Pioneers Network. So again, that's invest.impactpioneers.ph. This is our investment platform where you can register as a user. And it's not only open to entrepreneurs, but it's also open to investors, service providers. So if you're, for example, an accounting firm, a legal firm, a law firm, and you want to provide services to startups, you can register on the platform as well. And it's also open to other entrepreneur support organizations. So we're also on most of the social media platforms. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. That's Impact Pioneers Network.
Wow, yeah, amazing. Yeah, so I'll share also those links below, no? So yung website, yung social media channels. Yeah, so thank you, Katherine. And by the way, that session sa Philippine Startup Week 2021, you can actually watch that sa YouTube channel ng Philippine Startup Week. Yeah, so thank you, Kat. This is a very life-changing conversation for me. And this is a very important issue sa ating lipunan. So I hope more people get to know more about this, more people get to be more literate and more aware nga. Yeah, so thank you, Katherine, for sharing about Villgro Philippines and sharing about gender finance gap and how Villgro Philippines is trying to solve or to resolve this problem. So thank you, Katherine.
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope we continue our conversations around this as well.
Of course, of course. So abangan natin sa next episodes pa. So maybe we'll have more conversation about Villgro Philippines as a social enterprise incubator then. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.